Hey, what's up, you guys on Facebook and YouTube? This is Justin Wilson, and I'm here with Prince Michael as my host or guest. Today, we're going to be going over this this new viral video coming from, I would say, the left or Democrats, where basically they're trying to tell us, how we should accept the elections, and it's called "Wake Up for Republicans." So we're going to dissect this video. It's it's quite a bit, as we would say, triggering in a sense because of the snobbiness and just the gaslighting you find that is just so bold. It's nauseating. So we're gonna go through the video and just dissect it because it's just cruelly gaslighting. I mean, the propaganda is just bold. So let's get right into it.
Okay, so this video is by a writer, filmmaker, and storyteller who is also an Oscar nominee. He was a guest host for Larry King Live. So this guy is not your average person. His name is Matthew Cook, and he makes this video that he calls a wake-up call for Republicans. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through it and we're going to break it down. We're going to stop every time he makes a point and we're going to talk about it. So let's roll.
This is all right. Republicans. America elected Joe Biden by over 7 million votes, and you're confused.
All right, we're going to stop right there. Okay, so here's what he said. He says, America elected Joe Biden by over 7 million votes. And you're confused? He asked this question in this incredulous way, as if you have to be stupid to not accept without question the official story that Joe Biden was the clear-cut landslide winner with the most votes ever. But the problem is that it's not that easy. And when people ask you to accept something like that without questioning, that's when you really want to question it. Now, there was a guy by the name of Peter Navarro who was a Trump administration insider, and he's done a whole lot of parsing out of all of this election data and the election irregularities. And he came out with a 35-page document called the Immaculate Deception. So if anybody's interested in finding out what these voter irregularities are in the swing states, I want to invite you to go look at that. But let's take something a little bit more simple. So, Justin, have you heard about the amount of counties that Joe Biden won versus Donald Trump?
Yeah, wasn't it around like 400? Now, before we get too deep into this, remember, we cannot say certain things about this because they will give me a strike on my channel and delete mine. So, I think that's very funny how they want to just say what reality is and no one can disagree with them because, it's, I guess if you're right, then nothing says it more than you censoring people. So
right. And I mean, here's the thing. Whenever you hear people say the science is settled, experts all agree, authorities believe, those are sort of caveats that people use to try and disarm your critical thinking abilities, to say, hey, people a lot smarter and a lot more authoritative than you believe this. So if you question it, you must be either stupid or crazy, and that's not how dialogue and discussion works. So you were right. Barack Obama, when he won 68 million votes, he had won 830 something counties. Trump actually won by 70. He got 74 million votes in the last election, and he won 2,497 counties to Biden's 477 counties. And we are to believe that Biden got 81 million votes by winning only 477 counties. So it's just an anomaly. It's something weird, and it's something that we should question. But what he's telling us is that if we question it at all, it's because we're either ignorant, uneducated, or we're stupid.
Yeah. Let's go on. We haven't scratched the surface yet, but yeah, this is
all right. Let's keep moving.
Because you didn't see us flock to his rallies and cheer his smackdowns like we were at a pro wrestling event during a global pandemic. We don't wear matching hats or have no more malarkey flags waving from the backs of our trucks. Do you know why? Because Biden is not our tribal warlord.
Stop right there. Okay, stop. Oh my goodness. So he straight up says, we didn't flock to his rallies in the global pandemic, leaving out the fact that they flocked to the streets protesting and rioting in the hundreds of thousands. So they cannot talk about they can't talk about the pandemic was stopping them from going to the rallies. And then he says, well, we didn't go around with flags saying no more malarkey. And then he says, you know why? Well, because the term malarkey is a stupid term. Like, why would you guys be proud of that? You guys know you guys were cringing when he says no more malarkey. That was not cool. Joe Biden is not cool. So none of you guys could actually, with a straight face, say this man is a cool guy.
Right. And, here's the thing. What we have to remember is that the point that you brought up is something that should be hammered on. I mean, it was totally okay, even during lockdowns all over the nation, for people to go out en masse and protest without masks and oftentimes doing anything but social distancing. And whenever it was convenient, then they would roll out the COVID excuse. Oh, well, the reason why nobody's attending the Biden rallies is because of COVID. The reason why he's doing this is because of COVID. But when they believed that they won on November 7th and they were all out in the streets dancing around and things like that, again, it was okay for them to ignore it. And whenever it was necessary for a vote, they had somebody who had tested COVID positive to come onto the House floor to make a vote because that was important. As a matter of fact, on election day, there was an article that came out in mainstream news media saying that you could go and vote in person even if you were COVID positive. So it's just it's a bit strange for them to roll that out as an excuse as to why nobody showed up when you see all those sort of different things that happened over the last year.
Yeah.
But we'll go on.
Yeah.
President is to represent more than one interest group. That's why 81 million of us turned out to stop a narcissistic personality cult that embodies all 7 of the deadly sins, most of all pride, which you've taken to levels of blasphemy, claiming your political leaders are handpicked by Jesus Christ.
All right. I don't know. I think people are familiar with the 7 deadly sins, but I'll just go over them really quickly because he says that 81 million people turned out en masse to stop this narcissistic personality cult that embodies all 7 of the deadly sins. So what they were doing was noble. They were trying to take down this evil, person and this evil group of people. So what are the 7 deadly sins? The 7 deadly sins, according to St. Thomas Aquinas, were vainglory, vanity or pride. Number 2, greed or covetousness. Number 3, lust. Number 4, envy. Number 5, gluttony and drunkenness. Number 6, wrath and anger. Number 7, sloth. So my question is how is he rectifying what he said with the 7 deadly sins? Are people supporting Trump because they're lusting after him? Are they supporting him because they're envious, because they're gluttonous or slothful? I see a little anger there, maybe even a little pride, but where does he mix all the other things in there with this? That doesn't make any sense to me. It just sounds like something clever to say to brand people who don't agree with his ideologies as bad people. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, Trump is he is a very cocky, arrogant person, and he uses it very well. But for them to actually pretend that they're not arrogant with their snobbiness, like how they condescend to people, is extremely hypocritical. I mean, it's just mind-boggling how they just are not aware of how they look when they talk down to people. Right. And then the whole idea of the 7 deadly sins. I don't get why they want to use the Bible or at least the idea of sin when they want to get rid of the social construct that the Bible has about sin, So of course they don't want to bring up lust because they're going to now that's going to stop them from I guess slut pride and all gay pride and everything because they want to fight against slut shaming. So I don't know why he brings up lust or anything like that or any of the deadly sins unless they want to be Christian.
Well, again, it's kind of as you brought up with the whole, COVID and social distancing and stay home and save lives, except for when it was convenient for them to go out in mass to propel forward an agenda. In this particular case, yes, they're very anti-Bible, anti-Christian, oftentimes, except for when it's convenient. And in this particular case, they just wanted it was something clever to say. These people are so evil. This movement and this man are so evil that they embody all 7 of the deadly sins. I mean, it's a way to demonize a whole group of people who really, more than anything else, they just flat out see things differently. And when you really ask people what they want in life, we all generally want the same things. We want to be happy. We want to have freedom. We want to be able to, do the things that we enjoy in life, have a family maybe, but to look at somebody as evil simply because they disagree with you on something political is really strange to me because we oftentimes have more in common than we don't. So it's just another sort of example of them conveniently using something to support their argument, but really not having an argument at all at the end of the day.
True.
All right,
let's go on. This is getting juicy.
This country is called the United States, and we have multiple converging crises that need adult supervision. But we are being distracted, trying to get control over a critical mass of you who no longer believe in reality, who've been hypnotized to fear a Joe Biden presidency whenever you hear the trigger words, radical socialist. Never mind that Biden is backed by America's billionaires whose existence depend on corporate capitalism. So your cognitive dissonance is staggering.
Okay, I got to jump in right there. He says a lot there, but let's just parse some of that out. He says the country has all these problems, but we're being distracted trying to get control over a critical mass of you who no longer believe in reality. Now, there's a lot there. Listen to what he's saying. He's saying we're trying to get control over you. You see, this man, he is no dummy. This man has been on TV. He's hosted, on major news networks. He's been an Oscar nominee. He knows exactly what he's saying and why he's saying it. Words are powerful. And so when he says we're trying to get control of you, he means what he says. These people are trying to get control of us, the way we think, the way we believe, the way we live, because he says that basically we are delusional. We no longer believe in reality, and we've been hypnotized to fear a Joe Biden presidency whenever we hear the words radical socialist. The irony of that is when you just flip that over on its head and look at the other side of that argument, you could very well use the exact same argument for people who have been frothing at the mouth ever since Hillary Clinton said that Trump supporters are a basket of deplorables, right? They have a name for it. They call it Trump derangement syndrome. And I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen people, good people, hating somebody so vehemently without any real data to back it up other than what they've been fed in terms of talking points by the mainstream news media. So it's really strange. And then he goes on to say that, people are hypnotized to fear Joe Biden whenever they hear the word radical socialist, which anybody should be afraid of. My mother comes from Nicaragua, and when Nicaragua was overran by the Sandinistas, it turned into the poorest country in Latin America almost overnight. And you look at Venezuela, which used to be the most wealthy country in Latin America, and after about 10 to 15 years of communist socialist rule between Hugo Chavez and Nicolas Maduro, they have become the poorest country in Latin America. How do you go from being the richest to the poorest overnight? It just boggles the mind. But what he also says here is he tries to say, well, your cognitive dissonance is staggering because Biden is backed by billionaires who need capitalism to stay rich. But what he fails to mention is that this country has become a corporatocracy. It's ruled by the corporations. So Biden, being backed by them doesn't mean that he's some big capitalist. It means that he's doing the bidding of his corporate masters, period.
Exactly. Yeah, he just pretty much admitted it. Like, never mind that these billionaires are the ones who are doing things for their own interest. So, but it's crazy how he doesn't understand that billionaires could actually support socialism because it helps them out. I mean, the billionaires are the one that gets to keep the money. Everyone below them are the ones who are suffering because they don't have the jobs. They're being taxed to death. And the billionaires could actually go anywhere in the world, throw all their money into the banks anywhere around the world and keep their millions and billions, while we can't because it's being taxed. So yeah, it's just crazy how he pretends that somehow magically means that a Biden administration won't be more towards the socialist end, especially considering that you have AOC and I guess her little posse and all the radical leftists there. They're the ones who have a stronger influence than Joe Biden. If they had a live on YouTube or Instagram, anywhere, they will have a staggering amount of people like watching their feeds. No one watches Joe Biden feeds. No one.
Right. Well, I mean, you're right. I mean, he had a very big live streamed event not too long after he supposedly won the election. And out of all the 81 million people that supposedly adored this man and voted for him, only 1,000 people showed up to the live stream. So that was a little embarrassing. I don't know what their explanation for that was, but it's a little strange. But you know what I find interesting is he points to, again, these billionaire corporation owners backing Biden as a way to say, you're wrong, right? But in Trump, and I've always told you this, I've never been, a conservative or Republican. I was always sort of center left. But recently, over the last few years, I've been branded as a conservative, and I really haven't moved. The goalpost has moved. My beliefs have sort of stayed the same. But what I saw in Trump is I saw a man who came in. He was already rich, which means, can't be bought off and bribed because he's already a billionaire. He didn't accept the salary. He's only accepted $1 a year because he had to accept something, right? But basically, he's accepted no salary, and he talks about returning the republic back to the people. Well, when this is a corporatocracy that's ruled and run by the corporations through their lobbyists and things like that, you're going to have the corporate-controlled media bash him incessantly for 4 years because they're nothing more than megaphones for the rich and powerful. And that's why we see what we see in the treatment of Trump. And that's why we see so many people coming after him with such hatred. So this guy knows exactly what he's saying. I mean, look at him. He's a good looking guy. He's well spoken. He speaks with passion, and lies always sound so much better coming out of pretty mouths. That's why they don't put ugly fat ladies on the news. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Careful. We don't want to get me banned. Okay.
Oh, would that be?
I don't know. I gotta be careful. Let's keep watching. This is
understandable. The most sophisticated mass media tools ever created have eviscerated your powers of discernment. And there's a gold rush on slinging alternative facts, making millions for opportunists who've taken you for quite a ride. But you need to wake up now and start the deprogramming. The election was not stolen. All that proof you kept sharing about suitcases and duffel bags of discarded ballots, it's all been debunked.
Okay. I mean, look,
I gotta be careful. Even though I want to to smack the idea, I know that there's people who's going to watch this and say I am inciting violence. So I have to be careful.
Well, I'll try to say this in as politically correct a way as possible. What he's doing here is he's saying that your cognitive dissonance is understandable because the most sophisticated mass media tools ever created have eviscerated your powers of discernment. In other words, social media, right? He then goes on to say, evil opportunists like a gold rush have been making millions, taking advantage of poor, deluded, paranoid people. And why is he saying this? He's saying this because this is a subtle justification for the deplatforming of dissenting voices, right? Anybody who doesn't speak with approved speech, anybody who doesn't toe the line and who doesn't coincide with the narrative, those people are being deplatformed because they're evil. And so they shouldn't have access to these powerful, most sophisticated mass media tools ever created. And so when we do this, we're doing this because we love you and we want to help you.
And what's so ironic is that he speaks as though these companies, these I guess media companies is anyone but them. It's no one from the left. So
Right.
Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Jack Dorsey. None of these guys are the ones that are actually programming us. So
Right.
it just makes no sense how they feel like everyone else is doing it, but not them. I mean, if that's the case, then okay. So what's the problem? Like, why can't you guys have competition?
Well, here's how you know that they're guilty of programming people. When you have a conversation with somebody who just absolutely ferociously, vehemently hates Trump, and you ask them for reasons why, typically what they'll do is they'll kind of spout off a few talking points. Trump's a racist, he's a white supremacist, he's, this, that, or whatever. They have like their favorite sort of talking points. And when you ask them to explain further, it's really hard for them to show justifications. Or, one of my favorites is, well, he said there were fine people on both sides. You ever heard that one?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And I asked them, I say, okay, that's really interesting. Did you watch that statement in context? Did you watch the whole video? Well, I seen him say that was enough. I said, was it? Well, because here's what happens. If you continue on just another 30 seconds, he clarifies and he says specifically, I'm not talking about the white supremacists. That's evil and that should be disavowed. And then he goes on, right? But what the media is very notorious for is taking people's words, not just Trump, anybody who they want to bash or attack. They take something that they say out of context that makes them sound worse than what they actually are, or it makes it sound like they're saying something different than they were. And that's why it's always important for us to go watch things in context. I tell people all the time, okay, why don't you go watch that speech? It was 15 minutes long, and tell me if you still feel the same way. And what do they say? They say, I don't want to waste my time. But this is how the programming happens, because all these ideas, these thoughts, these feelings, this hate is downloaded into your mind through this very skewed and biased journalism and reporting, and people are unable to think critically, and really they just utter talking points and don't have a single original thought. And that's the problem. And what he said also that was very dangerous. He said you need to wake up and start the deprogramming. Why did he say that? He said that as predictive programming because this is part of the plan. This is not new. In fact, they're just now coming out. Just a couple days ago, there was a New York Post article where Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was proposing funding to deprogram quote unquote white supremacists, conspiracy theorists, and basically anybody who doesn't agree with the narrative. When you hear
defunding.
When you hear talk like that about funding for deprogramming people who think differently than you, that's dangerous, because AOC, she's very pretty, right? She's a iron fist and a velvet glove, right? And so, I invite anybody to go look that article up. It just came out a couple days ago. And it's in the New York Post from the 15th of this month. And it says AOC proposes funding to deprogram quote unquote white supremacists. And who's a white supremacist? Basically anybody who supports Trump, even if you're not white.
Yeah. So when he said deprogramming, I thought, oh, okay, so this is one of those like concentration camps that they have, like those what do you call those re-education camps that they
Yeah.
have in China, where they force you to learn or be programmed by them. So they want us to deprogram so they could brainwash us. And I mean, they're doing it to themselves already by constantly repeating the same stories that they want us to have. That
Right.
Trump's a racist, Trump's a racist, Trump's a racist. You know, if you repeat it enough, people will believe the lie. Because, I mean, why would you keep repeating it if it's not true, right?
Well, that's what Hitler said, right? He taught that if you repeat a lie, you make it simple, and you repeat it loud enough and long enough, eventually everyone will come to believe that it's true.
Yeah.
So, and then the other part, like, which is what you reacted to, where he said the election was not stolen. All the proof has been debunked. All the affidavits have been thrown out. Over 60 lawsuits contesting the election in Republican states, many overseen by Trump-appointed judges, have been tossed out. Well, here's the part that he leaves out. Okay. First of all, the Trump administration, the Trump legal team, only brought forth maybe 3 or 4 of those lawsuits. The rest were by other people. Other groups, other entities, states, etc. But the big part that he left out was these, for example, when the Supreme Court, tossed out the cases and refused to hear them, they didn't do it based on merit. In other words, they didn't do it because they reviewed all of the evidence, all of the information, and they felt this is bogus, this is hogwash, there's nothing really true here, so we're just going to toss it all out. They tossed them out on technicalities or for other reasons, but they didn't toss them out based on merit. And that's the part that he's leaving out. So when people say it's all been debunked, the cases have all been tossed out, it's kind of intellectually dishonest because they're not telling you why. If people understood that nobody sat down and actually reviewed this evidence, not on a state Supreme Court level, not in the Circuit Court of Appeals, not in the Supreme Court, they would be shocked. But we're not getting that part of the story. All we're being told is it's been debunked and all those things have been tossed out.
Yeah, that's their way. That's their way of saying shut your brain off.
Exactly.
We looked into this. Well, who did the FBI look into this? Can we research this? No, it's been debunked by Facebook's fact checkers. These guys. Anyway, let's continue.
All the affidavits claiming widespread fraud have been thrown out. Over 60 lawsuits contesting the election in Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Republican states. Many of the cases overseen by Republican and Trump-appointed judges. 61 cases tossed out. Trump's hack attorneys are being sued or are under threat of disbarment. That's consistent with the countless criminal prosecutions of many former Trump associates.
Okay, I got to stop right there. Okay, so listen to what he said. He said Trump's hack attorneys are being sued. Now, first of all, what does he provide to support his claim that they're all hacks? These are serious, legitimate attorneys that have been practicing law for decades. I mean, you look at Giuliani, the man's 80-something years old. He's been a big-time lawyer. He, as mayor of New York, he was responsible for taking down the mob. I mean, you've got Ellis, who's pretty young. And then the ones who are affiliated, Lynn Wood and Sidney Powell, are serious people, right? Sidney Powell is being sued by the voting machine company that they made allegations against. And Lynn Wood, who was a defamation attorney, is representing her, and he essentially said, I read your claim, I'm not impressed, do your worst. And the reason why they're almost inviting these lawsuits is because when you go forward in a lawsuit, something happens called discovery. And that means before they can really get down to the bottom of what happened, they have to look at all the evidence. So they're saying, let's bring it all out in the open. You know, nobody's going after Lynn Wood, and Lynn Wood has said some absolutely earth-shattering things on the web before, of course, he was deplatformed. And then, of course, Jenna Ellis and Rudy Giuliani are being threatened with disbarment. For what reason? Because they represented the president of the United States as he exercise his legal constitutional right to challenge elections where there were some questions and some irregularities. But this is par for the course. You know, he says everyone who's worked for Trump, you know, they're getting prosecuted because they're all criminals. Of course. But here's listen to this. This is from Forbes. This is from Forbes magazine. And the editor of Forbes said this. He said, Trump's liars don't merit the same golden parachute, basically, as anyone who would leave an administration and go out into the professional world and make a lot of money. He says, let it be known to the business world, hire any of Trump's fellow fabulous above, and he made a big list. And it says, and Forbes will assume that everything your company or firm talks about is a lie. We're going to scrutinize, double check, investigate with the same skepticism we'd approach a Trump tweet. Want to ensure that the world's biggest business brand approaches you as a potential funnel of disinformation? Then hire away. That's called blackmailing. That is blacklisting. That is very, very dangerous.
Yeah, it's crazy. They're making sure that there's like a one-party government, period.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what it is. If you don't get down with the approved speech and the approved sort of mindset, then we're going to make sure that we crush you. That's what they're saying right here.
Yeah.
All right, let's
continue.
But the PR stunt worked on the tens of millions of Americans primed for mass hysteria. You succumbed to Salem witch trial levels of mental lapse, believing our elections were stolen based on spectral evidence. Dreams about krakens, which are make-believe.
Okay. So he says that this whole thing was a PR stunt for those primed for mass hysteria. Now, again, like I'd mentioned before, we could very easily use that same argument against people on the left, because many people have been downloaded full of hatred and fear for so long that a lot of times these things that are happening, which are PR stunts, they can't even process it. You know, for example, when it just came out that the FBI exonerated Trump from being responsible for inciting what happened on the 6th on Capitol Hill. This is the FBI, and yet they had already impeached him with this sort of lightning fast impeachment, and everybody went along with it because they had already been primed for mass hysteria, because that's what constant exposure to fear does. It makes you susceptible to that. And he's using that argument against basically people who are thinking critically. And then he says you succumb to a Salem witch trial level of mental lapse. Why? For having the audacity to believe something other than the narrative, something other than the official story. And then he goes on to say that based on dreams about krakens, which are make-believe. What does that even mean? What is he talking about? Nobody thought a kraken was going to swallow up, certain people. It was a figure of speech about something, some sort of information, bombshell information that supposedly is about to drop, which, I don't know if that's true or not. I just know what they've said, but he knows what he's saying. This man isn't stupid, but he's using these words in a way that is pushing forward an agenda.
Yeah, let's go on. This is ridiculous.
Okay.
It's time to wake up now. Black Lives Matter is not a terrorist organization any more than Martin Luther King Jr. was a terrorist, or Gandhi, or Nelson Mandela. Peaceful protests and strikes and boycotts. That's how a society creates change without violence.
Okay, I gotta stop there.
Without violence, he said. Without violence. All that year.
Right.
Black Lives Matter is not a terrorist organization. Fires everywhere. Cars are burning. Cops are getting shot. Kids are getting shot. And Black Lives Matter is not a terrorist organization. No more than Martin Luther King was not a... Oh, my goodness. This is gaslighting, guys. This is exactly gaslighting. As you saw, the city's burning down. He has the nerves to say that Black Lives Matter is not a terrorist organization, an organization that goes out to businesses and threaten to destroy, break their business and destroy their property if they don't, give them some, I guess, black tax. Oh my goodness.
Right. I mean, you've seen Black Lives Matter go and try and intimidate business owners, saying you're in a black neighborhood, and so for that reason, you need to pay. I mean, it's like the mafia when they used to go around and hit up stores for protection money, right? They're saying if you're in our neighborhood, you need to pay a certain tax to operate here because otherwise you are what is the word? You're gentrifying, right? But here's the crazy part. So yes, he said with a straight face, Black Lives Matter is not a terrorist organization. If all of the violence over the summer and all the billions upon billions of dollars of destruction that had happened across the country over the summer committed by Trump supporters or Republicans, they would absolutely be saying that they were terrorists. In fact, in spite of my strong disagreement with them entering the Capitol and doing what they did on the 6th, nobody burned anything down. As far as I know, there wasn't much damage done. But there's a big difference, but they're labeling them terrorists without question. And here he's saying, no, that Black Lives Matter could never be. But what goes too far, in my opinion, not that he hasn't gone too far already, is he compares Black Lives Matter to Martin Luther King Jr., Gandhi, and Nelson Mandela. I have never heard something more asinine in my life. These are civil rights heroes, and he's acting like these violent bullies that are Black Lives Matter are on the same level. And he says the only methods used were peaceful protest, strikes, and boycott, because that's how a society creates change without violence. I'm sorry. What is violence if it's not burning down whole cities?
Yeah. And you know what's going to be crazy is that in the history books, they're going to erase this. They're going to erase, or minimize the riots and everything and say that it was a right-wing, riot. They're going to switch everything around, just like how they did with Nazi Germany. They kind of just made Hitler right-wing and said that everything he was doing, his policies were right-wing. They're going to change all that. They don't even call Stalin like left-wing. They try to make sure that the narrative is always they are the good guys. The good guys have always been leftist. That's how it is. But Napoleon said that history is written by the winners, right? And so that's what's happening. We're seeing a mass sort of rewriting of history. That's what the whole 1619 thing is about. And people are rewriting all of history to make it seem just as you said. Let's continue. Okay.
Everybody reasonable knows that violence and looting and murder are wrong and counterproductive to a peaceful society. That's why everybody reasonable condemns militarized cops executing citizens over cigarettes, cell phones, driving, jogging, walking, sleeping, resisting execution. That's what Black Lives Matter has been protesting. This isn't a partisan issue. It's the largest civil rights movement in the history of the nation. You need to wake up now. If you join Black Lives Matter, then all lives will matter. If it helps you understand it better, shut your eyes, say to yourself, my life matters and Black Lives Matter. If we unite, there's hope. We can end the savage practice of imprisoning millions of people for the crime of being Black.
Hold on, stop. Guys, I haven't watched this video like fully all the way through, but I was predicting he was going to say, millions of Black lives. I have to get the Black people and get the sympathies of everybody because poor Black people. Oh my goodness. And you saw how he did that game where he flipped the script, where he knows that there was violence all throughout, 2020 from the protest, but then he had to put the violence on the cops.
Right.
and just have everybody's mind on that. Just say, yeah, there was violence, and we were peacefully protesting. We
Right.
didn't just riot and do all this stuff like you guys at the Capitol. We were just fighting the violence that the cops had. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Well, it's and those same sort of arguments are used by the people who go around saying that we need to defund police, and they're actively defunding police departments in metropolitan cities across the United States. But when you look at DC right now, are they defunding the police, or are they? Do they have like 20 to 30,000 troops on the ground for protection? You see, it's just ironic, how different sort of they look at things when the shoe is on the other foot. I once heard it said that if some of these people didn't have double standards, they would have no standards at all. And so I believe that's the case. All right, let's keep going.
And correcting the mistakes of our ancestors does not mean the next logical step is white genocide. Unless you think the legitimate purpose of the criminal justice system is to protect white supremacy, like it has up until this moment. If that's your underlying premise, you're a racist. That's why you wave a Confederate flag. You just doxed yourself and you need conversion therapy.
Wait a minute. Did you hear what he said there?
Oh my goodness.
Hold up. Wait. So here are the people who hit, and I don't know much about conversion therapy. I really don't, to be totally honest with you. I know this much. The left is vehemently opposed to conversion therapy. They hate it. And one of the things that they bring up about people who are religious or on the religious right is they'll say, oh, he's bad because he was a proponent of conversion therapy. And I believe that conversion therapy has to do something with help making people not be gay anymore. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so they hate it, but if you are what they brand to be a racist, then you totally need conversion therapy. So the deprogramming, the re-educating, the conversion therapy, see, they don't want you to do that to them, but if you disagree with them, they want to do that to you. You see how
yeah. And the thing is, this is what they're trying to throw our word like against us. They're trying to say, well, conversion therapy, you guys have conversion therapy for gays. Okay, so we want to have conversion therapies for white supremacists. But of course, the reaction they want to have, for us is, twofold, where they want us to think, oh, I don't like conversion therapy. Man, I guess I was wrong about trying to convert gay people. So guys, I guess I agree with you about conversion therapy. Let's get rid of conversion therapy. I'm going to be a proud white supremacist, just like you're a proud gay person, because you can't convert me. I can't convert you. So let's be happy with each other. They don't want that. So if conversion therapy does not work, do not try to convert a white supremacist. Do not try to change someone unless you're, really praying to God, and God is actually doing the extremely complicated work of changing somebody's heart. But these guys are true. Like, I guess they're the true Gestapo right now.
You know what? The interesting thing about it is that when they use these terms like racist, white supremacist, the definition is so broad now and so vague because they throw it around at anybody. As a matter of fact, I believe it was you who posted something saying that that somebody no longer has to be white to be a white supremacist. You can be a white supremacist even if you're not white. Basically, what they're saying is anybody who disagrees with me is a white supremacist. And I once had a debate with somebody who was trying to tell me, this fool was trying to tell me that George Lucas was a white supremacist because of Jar Jar Binks, because that was racist. I'm not even kidding. This is a black person trying to tell me this. And I listened to him after he, spouted his stupidity. And I said, you do realize that George Lucas is married to a black woman, right? And of course that ended the conversation. But this is the level of stupidity that some of these people go to when they want to throw words like that. They've lost their meaning. The word racist, the word white supremacist, all these things have kind of lost their meaning because they label anybody who disagrees with them as a racist or a white supremacist. It's ridiculous.
It's so ridiculous. I want you to go rewind just about like maybe 10 seconds there. He said something that was very, just very triggering. 10 seconds, not too much. Yeah.
Or poor. Atoning for and correcting the mistakes of our ancestors does not mean the next logical step is white genocide. Unless you think the legitimate purpose of the criminal justice system is to protect white supremacy, like it has up until this moment. If that's
Stop right there. Stop right there. Yeah, you saw that? You saw that logic? He says, atoning for, our, I guess, the sins of our white ancestors, that does not mean the next step is white genocide, unless you believe that, I guess you want to uphold like white supremacy. So not wanting white genocide means that you are in support of white supremacy. Like there's no in between for them. Like
right.
If you want to preserve your people, that means you're a white supremacist. It's retarded. But keep on going right there. There was something else that he said that was crazy.
Well, it's funny because what did Obi-Wan say? Obi-Wan Kenobi said, only a Sith believes in absolutes. Right?
Yeah.
Here we go.
Racist. That's why you wave a Confederate flag. You just doxed yourself and you need conversion therapy.
Stop right there. Okay, there you go. You just doxed yourself and you need conversion. Okay, the term dox, I think he was putting it out there that, leftists or just people who are listening, they need to pay attention to more people who are just showing their face, walking around with Confederate flags so that they could go to their house and protest, try to get them fired, do whatever. Because to me, this term dox, this is a new concept to me. It just came up in the Trump administration for me, where you find someone on TV that you don't like or someone on social media, you find out where they live, you find out where they work, and you try to cancel them. And I think now it's becoming, he's trying to popularize it more so that, people will try to dox, all these people who are proud of, I guess, their heritage. And what's so interesting, I keep repeating this, that they wave the Confederate flag because they are proud of their history. They believe it represents, fighting government overreach.
Right.
But what they don't realize is the Confederate flag is a Democrat flag as well. Like the term Democrat historically was Confederate. They were on the side of the Confederates. They were fighting against Abraham Lincoln, the Republican. So, I mean, it's the same thing for Democrats to maintain the name Democrats. I mean, it's just crazy because they share the same history. So it's funny how they baptize the term Democrat,
sure,
but they don't want to allow anyone. They don't want the term Confederacy or Confederate to be baptized. That's the hypocrisy with them.
Yeah, I like the question that you put up, is that so much virtue signaling is disturbing, and that's exactly what this whole video is. This whole video is saying, we're righteous, we are morally and intellectually superior, you're garbage, and you need our help. So we're going to come in and deprogram you, because without us, you're going to be these deluded, hysterical people taken advantage of by these evil people looking to make a buck. So it's a ton of virtue signaling going on, and it is very disturbing. But everything he is saying in here, and I'm talking every line, was calculated. I know when he's been given a script. I can tell this is an approved script by the powers that be, who are telling him, go make a video and say this, this, and this. And he's repeating everything that he's been told to repeat lockstep. Okay, let's keep going.
There's no national Antifa network pretending to be fascist Trump supporters who want civil war. Antifa are anti-fascists who only exist right now because there are fascist Trump supporters threatening civil war.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. So this is a talking point, right? So when what is Biden in the debates, he brings up the Proud Boys, right? And as far as I've seen, the Proud Boys are a very ethnically diverse group. I believe there's people of
Wait, before you keep on, you got to make sure you censor yourself with the term Proud Boys. Don't try not to use it too much, because my video got taken down for using the term Proud Boys.
That's crazy. Well, that, as far as I know, that group is a very ethnically diverse group. As far as I know, there are also people of various sexual orientations in the group. They're pretty much sort of welcoming to all people. And you know, beyond that, I don't know much about them, but I've listened to some interviews with some of the leadership, and you know, they don't seem like white supremacists as far as I can gather. But when Trump brought up Antifa, this other group, what did Biden say? He said, Antifa is not an organization, it's an idea. And all that you have to do is go type in Antifa into the search engine in Twitter, and you will find the Portland, the Rose City chapter. You'll find the different, you know, chapters of Antifa in various cities, because it actually is an organization. And I also know that the FBI designated, or the Department of Justice designated Antifa as a terrorist organization a couple of months ago. So as far as I know, they don't do that for imaginary groups or things that are just ideas, right?
Yeah.
He also said that they're not going around pretending to be Trump supporters who want civil war, but we know for a fact that there are people who are dressing up as Trump supporters and going and trying to incite violence at these rallies and things like that, because you know one of them personally.
Yeah. I met one of them. The one, yeah, I actually respect him. I kind of respect him because I thought he was a good guy. But I think his name is John Sylvan. Yeah, Sylvan.
Mm-hmm.
Sylvian. Yeah. I mean, he was sharing it. He's pretty open about it on his Instagram.
Sure.
You know what they were doing. He wore a Trump hat. He was going to be among the Trump supporters, and he knew that they were going to storm the Capitol the day before it happened. He told me, and I didn't believe it. He showed me some tweets or some comments, and they were pretty vague to me.
Right.
But he had a thread. He showed me, that there's a Telegram that he follows, where, I mean, it goes deep. It tells them the maps of where the police is going to be and everything. Yeah, he showed me that and everything. And yeah, he wore a Trump Make America Great Again hat. He wore a Trump hat
Right.
While going to the rally. And I mean, there was more of him. That's why there was no Antifa out there like that. Like, you didn't see Antifa out there in their garb all together, because they were mixed in the group, and they actually planned it, that because he knew about it, and they were planning to be out there at the Capitol. So yeah, but I mean, I can't take away the fact that there were Trump supporters doing it too.
Oh,
but,
absolutely. As far as what I've heard, I've been following this very closely since it happened. Everything I've heard is that the first to actually breach the Capitol were the Antifa sort of insurrectionists, the ones that sort of
I totally bet. Yeah.
And there's video of Trump supporters screaming, saying, stop him, that's Antifa, and they're trying to stop the people from breaking it. So we've seen all those things. So we know that what he's saying is not true. I mean, there's so much of what he's saying that is demonstrably false. It's insane. But the problem is that when people see this video, they believe that this is gospel. They believe that this is absolutely unadulterated, pure snow truth, and that there is no lie to be found in any of this. And this is why it is so hard to have a conversation nowadays with people. And this is why, if somebody finds out, it's not good enough that you're not a Republican or not a Trump supporter. If you don't absolutely hate Trump with the same vehement hatred that they do, then you're a white supremacist. That's where we're at right now in this country.
Yeah. And what's interesting is that he said that Antifa is a group that is fighting, fascist Trump supporters, right? And what's interesting is that these guys, they use fascist techniques. They punch anyone that they swear is a white supremacist, or if you just disagree with them, they'll beat you up, right? You could be black or white, they'll punch you in the face. And if you compare them to the brown shirts, it perfectly parallels them. Now, the thing is, I hear people say to me, Justin, they are not fascists. They are anti-fascist. Don't you see it in their name? That means they're not fascist. And I'm like, what? So then I would bring up like the term Nazi. The term Nazi means National Socialist.
Right.
Like Hitler was a socialist, like AOC and all these people. And they would say, no, oh my goodness, you don't know nothing. Hitler was not a socialist. He just used the name to win people over. He wasn't a socialist. Just because it's in the name doesn't mean he is what the name says. So I'm like, well, duh. So stop using the term Antifa as though that's gospel truth, as though Antifa actually means anti-fascist. If Nazi does not mean National Socialist, then Antifa does not mean anti-fascist.
Right. And see, you know, I've had people, you know, try and debate with me and say that very same thing. Well, the name literally says anti-fascist, so therefore they're not fascists, you know, and I asked them if they've ever read the book 1984 by George Orwell, because there was a phrase that was coined in that book called doublespeak. Okay. And what that means is you say something that is the exact opposite of what you tend to do, or you claim to be something that is the exact opposite of what you are. In the book, they have something called the Ministry of Truth. And the whole purpose of the Ministry of Truth was to spread deception and propaganda amongst the populace to ensure that people were completely and totally deceived. And yet they were called the Ministry of Truth. So simply because somebody calls themselves something doesn't necessarily mean that they are that thing. You know, one of the things that I love about the Bible is Jesus, he lays it out and he says, by their fruits ye shall know them, right? He didn't say by their words, he said by their fruits, by their actions. So you can look at a person's actions and find out who and what they really are. And when you see people attacking other people simply because they disagree, when you see people claiming Black Lives Matter until you disagree, I mean, in San Francisco, there was a rally against, I guess, Twitter or something like that. And there was a Black person, a Black man who was kind of one of the leaders of the protests. And a bunch of counter protesters came, some of whom were Antifa, and the guy got sucker punched in the mouth and lost like 2 or 3 teeth. You know,
Yeah.
Black man. When did Black Lives Matter stop? Black lives stop mattering the minute that you disagreed with them, because that's how fascists behave. So, you know, when people try to say, "Oh, well, their name means anti-fascist," so they're not fascist. That's an oversimplification, and you actually have to look at the actual actions.
Yeah. All right, let's go on.
Inspired by the official Republican platform, which doesn't have anything in it other than clinical paranoia.
Okay, wait, really quickly. So basically, what he's saying here is anything, any information, any beliefs, any ideas, any thoughts that are shared by people on the right, conservatives, Republicans, things like that, is nothing more than clinical paranoia. So if you believe any of those things, you are clinically paranoid. So far, he's called Trump supporters deluded, delusional, hypnotized. He said that they have cognitive dissonance. That they're clinically paranoid. He's called them white supremacists, fascists. I mean, you name it. And what he's doing is he's waging an all-out attack on the character of anyone who dares to disagree with the narrative. That's what he's doing. And what he's doing here is he's not only trying to guilt people into acquiescence, but he's also signaling to those who agree with this video that these other people who are not like us are so bad and they're on the wrong side of history. So whatever we do to them is okay, because we have to bring healing and unity to this nation, and the ends justify the means. So because they're so bad, if we attack them, if we throw them in a concentration camp or a re-education camp, if we take away their ability to speak and deplatform them and censor them, if we physically assault them, it's okay, because we're actually trying to help them. And at the end of the day, we're just doing this to promote healing and unity. Got to build back better.
Double speak. Yeah.
Double speak. All right, let's keep going.
Re-educating you to believe there's a conspiracy to seize your guns and gender identity at the same time. So you're so disoriented, you can't defend yourself against a mass immigrant invasion threatening your livelihood. Come on.
Wait, stop right there. Stop right there.
The real
So you saw how he did that. You know, he tried to minimize our fear of being into, like, not having guns and so on and being vulnerable. He tries to direct that towards, oh, well, it's because you're scared of like being unprotected from immigrants. No, it's actually not being protected from the government. It's the government that we fear. That is the issue, because once I guess Hitler and all these dictators wanted to take control, they had to take away their guns. That's the point. I mean, the point of them taking away their guns is so that they can come in later on, like maybe 2 or 4 years later, and just do whatever they want, force their restrictions on them and put them in camps. You can't fight back. You can't say anything about it. You're done. And it's like he's pretending that possibility does not exist. It has to be about racism. You're just scared of these immigrants.
Right. Absolutely. All right, let's keep going.
Came from putting a recklessly uneducated man with a personality disorder in the White House, who spent his one catastrophic term branding America's democratic cities enemies of the country.
Okay, hold on. I have to stop there. I'm sorry, I have to stop there. So one of the things that's really interesting to me is this talking point on the left that Donald Trump was the most unqualified, unintelligent, uneducated person to ever set foot in the White House. It's almost as if they forget that George Bush happened, right? And even now that the PR machine is rebranding George Bush from Satan, which is what people thought he was in 2007, 2008, to the lovable idiot, people still agree that he was not the sharpest knife in the drawer. He was definitely handled by people that were in control of him. But when you look at Donald Trump, right, here's a man that had no political family. His father wasn't a president. There were no politicians in his family. He was a businessman, a real estate guy, and he literally talked his way into the White House. He talked his way into the White House by speaking to the deep desires and needs of people who felt disenfranchised by the political elite. And so people can say a whole lot of things. Donald Trump might be a whole lot of things, but one of them is he is not stupid. Okay. I have met stupid people in life, and I have met people who were painfully dumb. But when I see Donald Trump, when I listen to him talk, I mean, the man, he rarely uses teleprompters. The dude speaks extemporaneously for extended period of times. You've been present physically at some of these speeches. I mean, the man is a brilliant public speaker. He's incredibly smart. Okay, he might not be smooth and slick like Obama. He might not be stately like some other people, but the man is not stupid. And so what he's doing here is he's just pushing forward that same narrative.
I'm always amazed of how many names this guy knows. He never gets their names wrong. He's just, so many people, and he could say something about the person. I find that very remarkable. I mean, other people know a lot of people, but you notice that they won't call them by name unless it's planned. And no, this guy could just go on and on and on about like everybody. I'm like, this guy got like thousands of people in his mind as far as his profile. So I find that's very amazing. But
sure. And if we were to look objectively at Donald Trump, I bet you there would be a lot of really interesting, amazing things that we would find out about the man. But instead, we're simply taught to look at him as some sort of ogre or some sort of Neanderthal who happened to bully his way into the White House. It's just bizarre. And he says that he spent his one catastrophic term branding America's democratic cities as enemies of the country. Well, I mean, you can really flip that back on them and say, what did the liberal media and what did Democratic politicians spend his entire term doing? Were they praising him, or were they demonizing his every move? I mean, even when he did something that was undeniably, unequivocally, incontrovertibly right, they still were like, I don't know. I don't want to give him credit. There was some ulterior motive there. I mean, they just couldn't give the man credit for anything,
Yeah.
All right, let's keep going.
While taking credit for economic growth rates he inherited from a Democrat. He and his Republican Senate, under the smokescreen of your disassociation from reality and the brand name Drain the Swamp, filled the cabinet with profiteers like themselves. Billionaires made $1 trillion while they gutted our State Department, our FBI, our CIA, our DHS, our post office. Whatever Trump touched, he wrecked. They attacked our U.S. education system. They tore down the minimal regulations that we have protecting America's water and air. They turned out all.
Do you remember the whole Obama Flint scandal?
Wait, hold up. Okay, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
You remember the Obama Flint, Michigan scandal where there was all these obviously I think there's still problems with the water in Flint, Michigan. And Barack Obama stood in front of all those people and drank a glass of tap water to show.
Just a little sip.
Just, but I mean, he's talking as if Barack Obama was Jesus and that he left him this wonderful economy and things have taken a serious upturn since Trump has been in office. And I know because I've seen it with my own eyes on so many different levels. But he's trying to, again, anything that happened positive during Trump's 4 years in office, he's trying to take away and
give it to the Democrats.
Right.
And you saw how he flipped the term billionaires. So now the billionaires are the enemies, but he just said, well, never mind the fact that Biden is supported by billionaires.
Right.
So what is it? The billionaires, the good guys? Or are they the ones who are taking our money and raping everybody or taking advantage, I should say, of people? But Biden, no, they don't have the same feelings about Biden. They don't feel like using him as a puppet.
Well, and it's interesting because he talks about Trump's, promise to drain the swamp. And instead, all he did was fill his cabinet with people who were enriching themselves and using their political power to basically make money, when we know for a fact that it is common practice in Washington, D.C. to launder money, to steal money from the American people by giving, quote unquote, foreign aid to other countries. So what these politicians do is they give billions of dollars in foreign aid to other countries. And then these countries then turn around and hire somebody connected to the politician. Sometimes it's a spouse, a child, a sibling who's running a company to get some sort of contract to do something for them in the millions and sometimes in the billions of dollars. And so they give money, they give our taxpayer dollars to these countries in foreign aid. These countries turn around and make a deal with a family member, somebody connected with this politician, and then that's how they launder money. That's how they can or at least on the surface, legally steal money from the American people. So this is a big problem, and this is what where the whole term pay to play came from, right? And this is what was happening when we were seeing all these accusations with what was going on with certain politicians, Biden being one of them, recently, that have been swept under the rug. So for him to say that is one of the most disingenuous, intellectually dishonest things that he says in this entire thing. And he said a lot of disingenuous, intellectually dishonest things.
Yeah. And well, I want to say one more thing. He mentioned the swamp, how, we talked about, draining the swamp and so on. And it's like, Democrats, or at least leftists in general, they don't believe in the swamp anymore, at least when it comes to them. So I asked the person, okay, you believe that Trump, he's corrupt, his administration has corruption and so on, and you want to get, these people out. All right. So was there corruption before? I mean, before Trump? And they would say yes. Okay, so how come the FBI and all these people are not putting people in prison before that?
Right.
And they have no answer. They say, well, it's corruption. So you ask them, okay, so do you want to get rid of the swamp when Biden gets in? Because he was the swamp before Trump. So what do you say about it? Really, what they're saying is we actually like that swamp before Trump. Like,
right. And I wonder why. All right, let's keep going. Well, I guess we'll go a few more minutes.
Yeah.
The abysmal borders into a human rights crisis. They smeared America's top scientists and doctors, our healthcare system. They attacked our entire U.S. media. They're willful and incompetent.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump in so quick. But the U.S. media deserves to be attacked. I mean, it's gotten to the point where what we're seeing in the media, whether it's Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, it doesn't really matter. It's almost impossible to find any sort of objective truth in the news media. Everybody's pushing some sort of agenda. And, back in the days, I believe it was 1948 when the Smith-Mundt Act was signed that made it illegal for the government or the military to propagandize American citizens. They could do it overseas, but they couldn't do it in the United States of America. Well, Barack Obama, in the National Defense Authorization Act of 2012, he snuck in a bill, HR 431 or something to that effect, and it was the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act of 2012. And what he did was, for the first time, since 1948, he allowed the State Department to directly propagandize the American people. And when he was questioned by that, he said, if we can't tell the difference between truth and a lie, then we have a problem. Well, guess what? People can no longer tell the difference between truth and a lie. So, yeah, the U.S. media deserves everything they have coming at them, I think.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep going.
Has been so destructive. The USA is the epicenter of the worst pandemic in 100 years. Hundreds of thousands of us are dead. Millions are hungry and struggling to survive.
Wait, we keep it going. Hold on.
And their final act was a massive campaign to try to sabotage the bedrock upon which we stand, American democracy itself.
Okay.
This is on you, the Republican.
Okay, let's stop right there.
Okay, listen to what he said. He said, hundreds of thousands of us have died. I know there are a lot of these statistics about how many people have died from COVID-19. But if you look at the CDC's own website, they say that not only does COVID-19 have a 99.97% recovery rate, but they say that less than 6% of the people who have actually died with COVID-19 have died solely from COVID-19, meaning they didn't have any comorbidities or pre-existing conditions. And so when he's talking, when he talks like that, and you hear this big inflated number, it's a little bit again intellectually dishonest. And not only that, but the one thing that he fails to mention is that heart attacks, pneumonia, the flu, all those deaths are down like 98%. So where did all the flu deaths go? So he's throwing out these stats to support his argument. But if you actually just do even a cursory examination of these stats, you'll find out that, wait a minute, that's not what he's saying.
Yeah.
So it's a little crazy. Okay. All right, keep going.
Let me add one more thing is that, they're talking about opening up, businesses and everything because they're saying that the economy can't handle, more lockdowns. So they're saying that because they're secure with Biden. They were just saying all this stuff like, we got to lock down because they wanted Trump to get out. They're trying to destroy his economy and have a talking point, like a platform to, I guess, justify their I hope you guys could read my lips. But yeah, if we kept on going without a pandemic, or at least without taking the measures we took, yeah, it would have been hard to justify why Biden wasn't getting any support at all. But yeah, let's just go on with this gaslighting video. Let's get to the end of it.
All right.
In America, elected a man whose business model is lying, who demands total obedience, while swindling and eventually turning on all of his employees and followers after years of abuse. You elected a perfect cult leader. Our enemies are ecstatic. Our allies are horrified because of the suicidal Republican ideology of opposing any limits on gluttony and greed. What was once a beacon
Wait. Hold on, stop. Gluttony and greed. Who is gluttonous? I thought being fat was good.
I mean, you know, it's hard trying to make sense out of anything that he's saying. He's calling Trump a cult leader. They're suggesting that he's a fascist. You know, what's funny is how many times has Donald Trump been called a fascist during his, 4 years as president? Too many to count, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know about you, but fascists don't get their Twitter accounts deleted. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, Can you imagine Hitler getting his Twitter account deleted? What do you think he'd do? Mao Zedong. Yeah, we just decided to delete Mao's Twitter account because we didn't like what he was posting. Yeah, they would be taking a dirt nap pretty soon, right?
Exactly.
And yet all this stuff is happening. I mean, Donald Trump has gotten deplatformed from every major social media. He's gotten deplatformed from Pinterest. Like
Pinterest.
People who go on there and look up, couches and curtains can no longer hear anything about Donald Trump. And yet he's a fascist somehow. It's just strange. It's very strange.
And you notice that no one ever accused Donald Trump of spying on them. No one does that. Right. Because then that would put spying in a bad light. They don't want spying to go on now because Trump is doing it. So, oh wait, Google, what are you doing? Are you spying on us? Trump, how are you spying on us? Are you using social media to spy on us? Like they don't want to talk about it. So I think like leftists, they all share this hive mind logic where they know what subjects they need to not talk about. Sure. Subconsciously, because everyone thinks in patterns, and your pattern will tell you what would destroy, I guess, the body. So they don't want to talk about certain things like like spying or like what would a dictator actually do. They just, in their minds, a dictator is just a very mean person, someone who says politically incorrect things. Right. But if you ask them what is a dictator, like for example, I ask somebody, "Oh, you called Trump a dictator. Define a dictator." And he said, "Someone who gains power by force." Then I said, "So Trump fits that description?" And he was like, This discussion is over. I'm done."
That's usually how it goes. As soon as you try to inject some logic or pragmatism into the conversation ended.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, let's keep going.
Over the world, American democracy is no longer a given. Your right-wing leaders and shouting heads, they're not going to stop clawing their way down a bottomless pit of excuses to continue profiting off of selling you a virtual alternate reality made up of false accusations and revenge fantasies, giving you a persecution complex they won't stop feeding no matter how many of you are driven right off the deep end. Any citizen of the United States continuing to fall for it. Some of you thinking of taking up arms against the strongest military power on earth. Others making excuses for these terrorists because you share the same beliefs.
Let's stop right there. Some of you guys think you could come up against the strongest military. In other words, don't you think about fighting the government back. That is a strong message right there. Mm-hmm. That is like you're delusional. You think that you have guns to actually fight off the government? Right. Heck no, you will lose. But what they forget is, or at least what God allowed to happen in history is, like, we didn't win the Vietnam War. We had we had the upper power, like the upper hand, but they won because they were in their territory. They could be anywhere, and to destroy or beat the enemy, you have to like pretty much send an atomic bomb and just kill, the innocent with the, I guess, the combatants. So that's the problem. Like, if they wanted to like take down society or take down all Trump supporters who have guns, we're so mixed in with society that you end up having to destroy buildings. There will be so many casualties. It'll be hard to actually get us all out. It's just hard. It'd be a guerrilla war.
Right. And it's just, I mean, what he's saying here is very incendiary, in my opinion, at a time where you have them saying out of one side of their mouth that we should, it's all about healing and unity. Let's bring everybody back together. To be saying stuff like this out of the other side of their mouth is very strange. Basically, like you said, everything in here is a calm. Everything in here is he's dropping, he's dropping hints and talking points, essentially saying, if you were to dare to do something like that, you'd be destroyed. But he's also insinuating that all, anybody who is a Trump supporter wants to take violent action, or anybody who is a Trump supporter supports the violent action because they share the same beliefs. Look, I try my best to be sort of, as much of a centrist as I possibly can. But I look at both sides and I say, I can agree with that. So there are some things that I see on the left that I agree with. There are some things that I see on the right that I agree with. But even though I might share some beliefs with people who are conservatives, doesn't mean that I agree with everything that they do. When I saw what was happening at the Capitol, I sat there in disbelief, and I totally disagreed with it because I thought, how is this going to help at all?
Mm-hmm.
Especially when what they were supposed to be doing that day was presenting the evidence to support the claims of election irregularities before Congress. You see? And so for them to do that just seemed very counterproductive and more of a hindrance than a help to anything that was going on. So yeah, I mean, just because I might share some beliefs with people who would be considered conservatives doesn't mean that I agree with every action that they take. See, that's intellectually dishonest. He's saying, if you share the same beliefs, then you support anybody who commits violence or anything like that. And that's how they lump everybody together in one group. And as a matter of fact, this is what the Chinese Communist Party does in China. They want to go after a particular group. What they do is they get the state-controlled media to label them, and that's enough for people to convict this group in a court of public opinion. And so what they'll do, and what they did like during the Cultural Revolution was they would label somebody who had a different idea or opinion as a dangerous, selfish counter-revolutionary. And even today, if you're a Chinese dissident and your opinion differs from the CCP, you'll be accused of sedition and jailed. And they're using similar tactics in the United States of America because for some people, there's no difference between those who committed violence at the Capitol building and those who simply voted for President Trump based on policies. In their mind, they're the same. And that's exactly what he's saying right here. And that's why it's dangerous. This is the kind of rhetoric that causes violence. This is the kind of rhetoric that incites violence and things like that. It's stuff like this.
Yeah. Let's go on.
All right. There's just a little bit left and he rambles on some more, but let's go.
You don't have a political party anymore. Come back to reality. January 6th, 2021. That was your come to Jesus moment. Armed insurgents threatened to hang the vice president, kill the Speaker of the House. They dragged a cop down a flight of stairs and brutally beat another with an American flag. They killed police. A suicidal QAnon follower gave her life trying to break into the House chamber. For what? The most significant terror attack on our country since 9/11 happened because Republican radicals believe Democrats are Satan-worshiping pedophiles who stole their country, and they'd rather die than lose the protection.
Should I keep going?
I just, oh my goodness.
He's like, Justin's like, I don't want to get banned.
I know, but I swear, I was just saying this on my Facebook that it blows my mind that liberals, leftists, they don't believe in conspiracies. They literally don't. They think that if there is someone who's conspiring or doing something nefarious, they will tell you. So if someone is actually trafficking children, they're going to say, hey guys, I'm trafficking children. Just letting you guys know. We're not keeping secrets here. We never do that. I swear this is just crazy. So these people actually believe that there could be pedophile priests, pedophile bums, pedophile uncles. There could be a human trafficking syndicate, in just, urban areas. But nowhere, like the politicians cannot possibly do that because they have transcended above human sinful nature. It's just mind-boggling how they think that this is the reality and they want us to believe it.
Well, and it's funny because what did he say? He said that Trump supporters are guilty of all 7 deadly sins, most of all pride, for thinking that Jesus Christ appointed their leaders, and that's blasphemy. And really what they do is they put their leaders on a pedestal as well, because whenever you try to point out improprieties or things that they've done wrong, especially heinous things, even if there's proof, they just flat out won't believe it. There's a lot of very questionable people who have done some very questionable things, people who are in leadership positions in the House and in the Senate. And if you bring it up, they don't want to hear it.
Yeah. I mean, and they're over here trying to talk down this idea that there's like pedophile, like politicians. When you bring up Jeffrey Epstein, for the longest, they wanted to ignore it. They're like, let's not talk about this. That's not the topic today. It's Russia. When they could not ignore it. And now he's in jail. They start talking about, look, Trump, there's a picture of Trump and Epstein. And they say, yeah, they look at the friends.
Right.
But they totally ignore Bill Clinton and all these pictures of him on the island, him getting his shoulder massaged by one of the girls who were trafficked.
Right.
They ignore all that. And I find it very disrespectful when he called that young lady who got shot, a suicidal QAnon believer.
Right.
I mean, how condescending. I mean, it's still kind of too soon. But yeah, to just say she's suicidal.
Right. I mean, I'm pretty sure if somebody said she was going to get shot, she probably would have rethought that, Well,
I'm sure if she was black, he would not call her suicidal. I
True.
mean, all these black people who run up towards a cop with a gun, are they not suicidal? Can you say that? I really want to see if these guys could actually say that if we were to switch her skin color like immediately, because really reality is so politically controlled that they can't look at a color and call it what it is. They can't look at a number and call it what it is. 2 + 2 is not 4 to them. The moment a politician is, holding up the number, or a leftist, they have to say 5. It's 5.
Right. Exactly. I mean, it's just mind-boggling how bizarre their mindset is when it comes to ignoring, things that are right in your face. All right, let's keep going. It's almost done.
Their leader, defending truth and democracy and equality for all people against any tyranny, foreign and domestic, is the only thing that unites us and protects our freedoms.
Patriot.
That's why Trump is being held accountable for his crimes.
Oh, here we go. See, look, I'm a patriot because I'm holding Trump accountable for his crimes because I'm a patriot. Yet, if you call yourself a patriot, then you're immediately branded as a white supremacist and you need re-education. So there you go. All right, here we go.
Every congressperson, every official, every officer who conspired or continues to wage a mass deception campaign to overthrow American democracy. especially under the threat of violence. The First Amendment protects our right to express ourselves without fear of arrest. The right to free speech does not include threats of violence, and it certainly does not grant the authority to force media platforms to broadcast single-party hate propaganda that claim only its members are the real America.
All right. It's just. I mean, the intellectual dishonesty is off the charts.
It's just over 9,000. I'm like, yo, this guy's going Super Saiyan hypocrisy. Hypocrite. I mean, this is the gaslighting is not gas anymore. It is flaming gaslight. I mean, it's just if there was a flaming gay, this has to be flaming hypocrite.
But Justin, here's the thing. Look at his face. He says it with so much conviction. It must be true, right? Isn't that what they say? I mean, look at that face. Does that look like the face of a liar? Does that look like the face of somebody who would not be telling us the truth, right? I mean, have you seen Donald Trump trying to force anybody to broadcast his messaging to anybody? When Twitter took him down, did he try to write some sort of executive order to force them to give him his Twitter account back? Did he try to do that with YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat or any of the platforms that deplatformed him? No, he didn't do that at all. As a matter of fact, since that's happened, he's made a few comments about it and hasn't said much at all. And so what he's saying in trying to force their messaging on people claiming that they're the real America, the only people trying to force their messages on people are the people on the left who are censoring free speech, who are censoring thought that is dissenting voices and thought that doesn't coincide with the mainstream media narrative and what they're trying to push forward. So it's just bizarre that he can say this with, I mean, I wonder if he didn't have to do like a couple takes to get this out, because it's bizarre that he was able to say this with a straight face.
I don't know if I don't think there were any cuts in this. It just seems straightforward. Maybe he's reading the teleprompter very well, and I guess with good pause. So he's doing a good job. But I gotta admit, there were some moments where he did like a sort of like blink, like a lion blink, where you have to close your eyes because you're like, okay, this is the end of that chapter. I have to get rid of that stress that was on me. So I can't look straight because I'm lying. Blink.
Oh, yeah. I want to see one of those body language experts that they have on YouTube review this video and see what they think, because this thing is so replete with dishonesty and lies. Like, this man cannot possibly be saying this, because this thing is 9 minutes and 21 seconds, and the entire time he's saying, "You're stupid, we're smarter than you, shut up and listen as we re-educate you and your children and teach you how to be real Americans." And as a matter of fact, he's probably not even concerned with real America, because they want us to be citizens of the world, right?
Yeah. So, and it's what I don't get about these people who talk about censorship, how they feel like, oh, well, these are private companies, so you can't force them to just allow you to spread your hate, right? It's weird that they don't understand that these big tech companies have become bigger than the government at this point. That's why Trump was talking about the 230. Well, we should be able to sue them so that we can have a fighting chance against them, because they're so big that they can pressure all the companies in this country. The phone company, Verizon, AT&T, all these companies, to not sell to Trump supporters, not sell to whoever they believe have wrongthink. They can turn off anybody's internet because of what they said, because they are all connected and they are at the top. They are right now, they got rid of Parler. Parler cannot get back up. They're at this point, I think the guy,
the guy's in hiding right now, right? Isn't he in hiding?
He's in hiding. They're trying to kill this guy.
And how do you deplatform a whole platform?
Yeah, they deplatform that. And what people just don't understand is that when people go after your words, they don't only want to stop the words, they want to stop you. They want to get rid of you as a person. That's why the Pharisees could not stand Jesus being alive. I mean, because even if they cut out his tongue, of course, that's a blasphemous, idea, but they were to, mute him completely. Just his mere presence would be a rebuke to them. So they're not just going to stop at just silencing us on social media. Oh no, they want to go further. They're talking about like making sure that Trump supporters or people who are strongly in support of Trump, the airlines could actually, ban them. I mean, it's.
Didn't you hear about that news story from last week where two women were having a private conversation about their support for Trump? Somehow somebody overheard it, said something to a stewardess. They called airport security and they got or the air marshals, and they went onto the plane and pulled the woman off the plane. They filmed it and everything. The women were crying. They couldn't believe what happened to them. They were surrounded by police, like they had walked on there with a loaded gun, and all they were doing was having a conversation about their support for Donald Trump. I don't know about you, but I don't have to be a conservative to look at that and say that's wrong.
Yeah.
If you're so full of hatred that you can't see that as a gross violation of privacy and free speech, then something is seriously wrong with your thinking, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm just mad that there's so many people who are just sitting back and doing nothing about it. There's so many conservatives who are okay. Let's just get past this hurdle. We're not going to get past this. They're only getting worse. This monster is only growing, and there's some leftists who disagree with what's going on, but they're just so passive. They do nothing about it. Man, I've had some conversations. I would talk to someone on the plane, like on my phone, and I would talk about many things, but as soon as I start talking about COVID, oh wait, I have to be careful because I forgot. I'm not. But guys, just think with me. If I start talking about those things, some virus, then that's when people start telling me, can you just like not talk right now? People would actually do that because I'm actually getting I'm messing up their minds. Like they don't really like to question things. No. So that's the thing. When you believe in a lie, you do not like questions because questions shows that you're missing something, that you really don't have all the answers, and that your reality could be a lie. So liars hate questions. Liars hate discussion. Liars hate examination. And this is the traits that they have. They hate discussion at this point, and they want to demonize conversation or free expression anywhere. So it's getting out of hand, and it's just I think we're at the place of no return. Like there's no up at this point. There's only downward towards Christ's return. That's what I see.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen come January 20th. I have my theories and my suspicions, but I do know this. The polarization that is happening and the hatred that is happening of one side versus the other, it's real, it's palpable, it's tangible, and it is definitely a sign that Jesus is coming back soon. So I really do hope that people see this and they go look at Matthew chapter 24 and Luke chapter 21, where Jesus talks about the things that are happening would be happening in the last days, and they see all these things coming to pass, and they get their spiritual house in order and get themselves connected to the divine power that is Jesus Christ and be saved, because we are not long for this world, and I think that the end is sooner than we think, and I don't know that that's a bad thing. I mean, I can't wait to be beyond stuff like this, with people talking down to me and people like me simply because I don't agree with them. So yeah, I'm it's what you're saying is absolutely right. I totally agree, and I think we just have to get ourselves ready.
Yeah, can't wait till Jesus comes. But let's play the last segments of this.
All right.
For the former Republican Party, who call themselves patriots, this is your wake-up call. Your nightmare of a brainwashed, radical, anti-American movement trying to destroy the country was you.
Wow. You know what? I changed my mind. That last 20 seconds was so enlightening. I think I realized I'm part of the problem. Not because I'm a Republican, because I think differently, because I've never been a Republican, but I think differently. But you're definitely part of the problem because you're a conservative. According to what he just said, the problem, the nightmare was you.
Oh my goodness. I'm starting being I'm being overwhelmed by white guilt right now.
Right.
Like my ancestors have done so much to this country. Oh,
right.
This is just this.
Well, you know, I just really think that it's time for us to really start reconciling with the idea that things are definitely going to be different from this point forward. And I told people, you know, when everybody was looking forward to 2021 and putting 2020 behind them, I said, you know what, if you think it's going to get better in 2021, you better buckle up. You know, I definitely don't think it's going to be better. One of your in the chat, they said something about we're nowhere near close to the end. We haven't seen hell yet. I do think that we're close to the end. But I think that the events of the last days are going to happen very rapidly. And I think it's going to be hellish. And I think, you know, Jesus said, if God didn't come, you know, and end things, like no flesh would be saved, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think before it gets too bad, you know, we'll be saved. But yeah, we're right there. We're right up against it, and I think God is allowing us to see this so that we can wake up, like He's suggesting. But we're waking up to the truth, not His propaganda-filled garbage piece that He has here.
Yeah, and you know, I as an Adventist, you know, we've been expecting the right to be this way. Actually, we've been thinking that, you know, conservatives were going to be more somewhat, I guess, intolerant, and they were going to be the ones who were going to be very heady and arrogant and so on. But I'm not seeing that right now. The left is just, I don't want to only talk about the left, but the left just won't let me stop talking about them because they're the ones who are dominating. And, you know, I had a friend of mine, I think his name was John, was it Hun or something like that? Well, anyway, I think if he sees the video, he knows what I'm talking about. But he gave a good analogy about it, because many Christians, we look at certain groups and say, okay, these are the people that's going to end the world, right? And a lot of Adventists, we're like, well, hold on. We expect the people on the right to do it, Republicans and so on. But what we see is the people on the left, they're building the gun to kill us. Right. So if you say, okay, a guy is going to kill us with a gun, and you're looking at a man and he has no gun, but you see the other guy with a gun, you're not going to sit there and say, oh, no, he's not going to shoot me. Right. It's the Democrats. They have everything locked and loaded. They have the House, the Senate, they have the presidency, they have big tech, and they're actually using it against us. So I don't see what it would take for us to like wake up and say, look, okay, well, we need to just start getting ready. We need to get out the city. We need to start building our houses off the grid. You know, just you could have a house here in the city, but then also build off the grid somewhere. Start looking to get some lumber and just learn how to live off town, because once they start doing their persecution and looking for where you work, making sure you can't live anywhere, try to put you in camps because you have COVID or some new disease that they created. Yeah, we have to learn how to get away.
Yeah, so. I in terms of intolerance, I've never experienced, and I'm a person of color. My great grandmother was born a slave. And I have never experienced intolerance and hatred like I have experienced from people who claim to be liberals over the last few years, simply because they find out that I might not share every single belief with them. It's bizarre, and yet they feel justified because this propaganda piece that we just saw was exactly what they used to justify their intolerance and their behavior. Because you're the problem, then you're the nightmare. You're the white supremacist Nazi. So the ends justify the means. So if we have to cleanse the nation by dealing with you with an iron fist, then so be it. And that's where we're at.
Yeah. Well, it is what it is. But I got myself on Gab. Praise God. I've somehow made it in the promised land. So I think I could speak there. I need, I guess I don't have my Gab link here, but I'll put it in later on. But guys, I can't stress enough, go subscribe to my Rumble. As of right now, there's free speech there, so you can go there. I doubt that I'll be on YouTube much longer, especially after Biden, or if Biden, gets seated as the president, because at this point, anyone could pretty much just say, "Look, I'm going to report this video. He said something crazy. He said something about election, or he disagreed with Joe Biden or whatever."
Right.
And they won't question. They would just say, "Oh, we have to strike this video. It's too many. It's bringing up too much issues." That's what they would do. And they're probably like planning a campaign to send some cyber warriors to go out and look for all these conservative accounts to just start flagging them, to start flagging. And that would just, force YouTube just say, "Okay, well, we have to delete it. We have to delete your channel because it's just getting too many complaints." So, yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised. But
yeah. Anyway, guys, I thank you for joining us for this breakdown of this new propaganda video. It was enlightening, and yeah, this is what you should expect for, I guess, 4 years more and more. And I don't see how there's going to be any Donald Trump in the future to slow things down. So, yeah, you just look to Jesus at this point. We just need to get into a Bible, look for ways to get out the city, and just be ready for anything. So, anyway, God bless and have a good day. Good day.